In this barbecue world, the flavors and recipes produced by pitmasters are a reflection of their upbringing in the world of cooking. Again and again on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, we've talked with guests whose life experience has seasoned the barbecue they're preparing and the businesses they're operating. I expect today's guest will be no different. We're going to meet Gil Barnes, who's building a catering business based in the same Hickory, North Carolina community where our podcast originates. But our guest fruits have spent plenty of time in the same dirt as your intrepid host, Sweet Home, Alabama, as well as some of my favorite places to play in Charleston. Before we meet Gil and learn about his Reed Street barbecue catering business, a quick reminder to be sure to visit our website, lowslowbbqshow.com. That's where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Lowdown. It arrives in your email box every Tuesday, and it's loaded with the latest Carolina barbecue news, links to our most popular podcasts and blogs, and a weekly recipe shared by some of our favorite pitmasters, like Gil Barnes, who we're going to welcome and excited to meet in today's episode of the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Welcome, Gil.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the most basic thing. Gil, what is Reed Street Barbecue?
So Reed Street Barbecue is my obviously catering company that you mentioned. I'm also a private chef for people. So I do a little bit of everything. I have about 20 years in the restaurant industry, and I've always loved barbecue. And a couple years ago, I decided I was going to chase the dream of having my own barbecue place and do my own thing. So that's what Reed Street is just 20 years of barbecue and chef experience for people to call me up and see what you need.
Okay, well, cool. So you touched on it just a little bit, but how did you get started a couple years ago? What really made you want to decide that, hey, catering is what I'm going to do, and then barbecue is what I'm going to cater?
So touching on that, I'm from Alabama. I actually started at Jim and Nick's Barbecue many, many, many years ago.
Okay.
Before 720, it's so long ago that 725 was not the national minimum for pay. It was actually lower than that. And I've chased barbecue ever since. I worked at Jim and Nick's. I worked at Full Moon. I mean, I could go on and on how many barbecue places I've worked for over the years. And a few years ago, I just kind of, when COVID happened, the restaurant industry was rough. I just went through job after job. I just could not find anything I was happy with, and I just decided I was gonna chase the dragon, as they say, and try and open my own place. So I started looking for a trailer. I started looking for whatever I could find, and really just started doing catering my way. And that's about 2 years ago. I finally found something, so I went and started my LLC, started getting my name out there, and started doing events slowly and surely, and just trying to keep things going. I'm still trying to get off the ground, but it's every week's a new challenge.
Yeah. Well, so what's your end in mind? What's your goal? Where are you hoping to take this Reed Street Barbecue brand in the catering experience?
I'm hoping that the catering leads to a brick and mortar. It was funny when you invited me on the show. I started listening to the past episodes because I wanted to know more about the show and everything. And it was funny, you wearing a John G's hat. I was listening to that episode, and he mentioned that he had seen this building in 2016, and he just knew that was the spot. It was very funny because there's a building here in Hickory. I'm gonna try and keep where it is, but there's a building here in Hickory I saw when I first visited Hickory in 2018. I was like, I want that to be my barbecue place, and I've kept my eye on it ever since. And it's still vacant. I'm trying to chase down who owns it. So there's a brick and mortar on the horizon. That's where I'm hoping to take this. It's one day to have my own place to do everything I want to do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, keep that a secret. Don't tell anybody. Otherwise they're going to come snatch it away from you and put out something bad that don't work. We want to see some Reed Street barbecue in that place and maybe get some more good barbecue here in the Hickory Metro. So speaking of good barbecue, how would you describe your barbecue? What are you generally trying to produce? What would you compare it to? What is the Reed Street barbecue flavor?
So as you know, there's every region of the country you have Carolinas, you have Texas. Alabama really doesn't have that just signature flavor. We're known for our Alabama white barbecue sauce, but when it comes to that, there's Alabama barbecue is kind of a hodgepodge of everybody. I grew up with a lot of people putting brown sugar in on things, and I always burned it. I never could get the brown sugar in a smoker right. I always burned it. My flavors are a little bit of everybody, but it's not so much as just salt and pepper. I use garlic powder, onion powder. I put a little chef spin on things, but I don't get too crazy. It's basic flavors, but my rub is a little more advanced than just salt and pepper. And there's nothing wrong with salt and pepper, but I dial mine up just a little bit.
Okay. So what is your most popular item when you go out and do something? What are people most fond of, or what are they requesting the most?
So since I've moved to North Carolina, I've actually done mostly pig pickings. That's been my
Hmm.
big thing. It's whole hog. Um, I got a little bit of experience in Charleston. I got to meet Rodney Scott and a few of those boys because they always come down to Charleston and do all kinds of events. So I got to learn some whole hog from some of those guys. But that was kind of the when I moved to Hickory, some people were like, "Hey, can you do a whole pig?" And I was like, let me see what my smoker can, because let me see how big my smoker can hold. And we kind of figured it out. And then I've done several whole hogs since then. That's kind of been my go-to is whole hog lately. And I would love to just do whole hog, but whole hogs, it's not a cheap thing, and it's a lot of food. So typically I got to have a bigger crowd before I take on one of those.
Yeah, sure. Well, so you mentioned the smoker, and we talked a little bit about that in the warm up here to our broadcast. But talk to me about your smoker and what are you using and your wood preference? What does your cooking setup generally look like?
So my smoker is I'm gonna call it's Redneck Engineer. It is a home built smoker by some I don't know who built it. I bought this second hand from a guy. I'm the third owner of this smoker. There is definitely some redneck engineering going on with this thing. It's an old propane tank. It's an old cast iron propane tank. It's 180 gallons. It'll do a decent load. I can get about 100-pound whole hog in there.
Hmm.
Little wiggling to get him in there, but he'll get in there. But there's they built like a fish fry on the front of this thing. So it's like a big bowl on the front with a drain and a propane burner. They did fish fries off this thing. It's a very interesting build. I just call it Heart because HART is welded in the front of the barrel. So it's just the Heart smoker is just what I call it.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like changing the name. I think it just fits it well. I typically wood wise is kind of right now whatever I can get hold of. I would love to use hickory all the time. But hickory I've found is not super abundant in this area, at least from like where I'm looking. I might be looking in the wrong places, but I'm typically on Facebook Marketplace looking for seasoned wood. That's all I
Yeah.
use. My smoker does not have any propane assist. It is all wood. Um, it is not the most efficient in the world, so it does burn
Mm.
a lot. So whenever I do a cook, I need um, I don't know exactly when it comes to a cord, half cord, I'm not sure how much I'm burning. I just know that I'm burning a lot of wood to do about 16, 17 hours. So I'm right now I've got a guy who's selling me, I'm getting a lot of pecan and oak from him.
Hmm.
And it's well seasoned. The guy knows how to season some pecan and oak, and it comes out excellent. Some of the best wood I've had in a while. So right now it's kind of whatever I can get hold of, but I would love to just be strictly hickory. I mean that's Alabama barbecue, as you know. It's a big hickory world down there.
Yeah, and it's funny we live in a town called Hickory, but there's not an awful lot of hickory wood abundant. Now there's some hickory trees
No,
around, but it's not just all over the place, right?
no, it's really not. There's a lot more oak and pecan around here, and you know what? If I can find the right guy, it works, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, well, maybe we need to talk. I got a bunch of pecan trees out in my yard, so I
Oh,
use
let me
some of that
know.
when I put them on my smoker. It's some of that windfall stuff. I cut it up and season it, and then I use it in my thing. So maybe we can connect on that sometime. So while we're talking a little bit still about your business, where can folks find out more? Maybe get in touch with you if they want to try to bring you on board to do a catering job or a private chef work.
So easiest thing is the best way is I have Instagram is just Reed Street Barbecue, all lowercase, all one word. And
Hmm.
it's REED Street Barbecue. Same as my email is just all one word, Reed Street Barbecue at gmail.com. Either one of those are great. I'm constant at my Instagram will go off if anybody ever messages me on there, or if you send me an email, it pops up on my phone. But yeah, those are the two easiest ways to get in touch with me right now.
Okay. Well, where did the name come from? Reed Street, REEDST BBQ.
So actually, Reed Street is an actual street in Tuscaloosa. If you're on the strip, there's that BP station on the left as you're going into downtown. To the right, there's a little street with a handful of apartments and houses, and that was the street I lived on in college. And that was where I first really started messing with food and cooking for my friends and stuff. Like there was 6 of us lived in a house, and I enjoyed cooking, so I was always like grilling, smoking, cooking dinner for people. That was really where I kind of found my passion for cooking, was at Reed Street. So it's a little bit of an homage to days gone by where I was hanging out with friends. We were sitting out in the backyard, doing all kinds of, just messing with food, doing all kinds of stuff, trying recipes, making up stuff. Some of it not so good, some of it fun. We ended up actually trying to smoke a whole pig in the backyard. That it turned out okay. I wouldn't say it was anything what I'm doing nowadays, but it was just one of those days in the past where we just had fun with food, and I always just wanted to. I did it a lot more for my friends, because I wanted them to like remember every time they like came to eat with me, they remembered like, hey, this is where we came from. This is the fun times. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. So you kind of talk a little bit about how you got started smoking your meat low and slow, and then you mentioned you started on at Jim and Nick's. Why did you decide to go into the restaurant working world, or was that connected to your college experience again at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa there, right along the strip, and doing the stuff there off of Reed Street? Did that kind of fuel your fire to get into Jim and Nick's, or was it something else?
So I started at Jim and Nick's in high school, and eventually ended up at Full Moon of all
Uh-huh.
places. Ended up down the street at kind of the competitor.
Yeah.
Went to work with some friends, and when I went to college, Full Moon was nice enough to let me just go down and work with them in Tuscaloosa. So basically, I just moved down to another store and was just working for them for a little bit. But school and work and everything was kind of hard to balance, so I didn't stay with them very long. But I kind of got bit by the bug.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after school, I didn't finish my degree at the time. I wasn't the degree. I was trying to be an engineer, and it did not pan out very well. So I went back to Birmingham and ended up at Full Moon for a few years, and then ended up somewhere else. And I enjoyed cooking, so I ended up going to culinary school at Jeff State of all places and getting an associate's degree. Um, Ended up in Charleston. Eventually, ended up working for Home Team, and I really liked the guys at Home Team Barbecue down
Yeah.
there. And that really just got the bug, because they were doing chef. It's like their chef inspired barbecue, where they're doing
Mm-hmm.
all kinds. They do barbecue, but they have fun with it. Like their specials are always kind of over the top. I was working with them when they were making house made bologna, some kind of wild things down there, and that kind of really got the ball rolling. It's like, I want to do barbecue. I like what's fun with barbecue. I like open wood fire. I love that. That's just a passion of mine, is just cooking old school with your hands, with a fire, with wood, having to do all that stuff. That's right up my alley.
Yeah. So, in all those spots between Jeff State and, kind of on the Reed Street with the boys cooking up, and then I know you've had some other positions and sort of leadership chef type positions at locations throughout Charleston. How do you feel like your experience in that career working in either the hospitality industry or the chefs, how does that really flavor or season what you're trying to do with your Reed Street barbecue catering?
Um, I would say that, like, sometimes I will say that I will use chef terms that people are like, wait, what are you talking about? I have to kind of dial myself back sometimes, because I have some French words in my head that when I'm making things. But I think that working for 20 years and doing all kinds of different culinary stuff, where it's fine dining, barbecue, bar food, I've played with a lot of flavor profiles, and I feel like it gives me a little bit of an advantage, to where like I know some things that people have done in the past that don't work, and I know some things that people do that do work. So I've kind of like, I can see a little bit of everything. So like I know, like, hey, ginger in a chicken brine is really delicious when you smoke it just right. And a lot of people wouldn't think to put ginger in their chicken brine when it comes to smoke, but it's one of those things, like I've seen a lot of stuff that I think gives me a little bit of an advantage, where I have some chef techniques that I can sneak in there and still have some fun, where it elevates the barbecue a little bit more, but it's not like fancy. It's not too over the top. It's little things that just like emulsifying a sauce just right so that the barbecue sauce is a little bit smoother and has a little bit of a different flavor, things like that. I think it
Yeah.
gives me a little bit of an edge because I can play with things a little bit differently in the way people see.
Okay. Well, so on the other side of the coin, you spend a lot of time on the business and in the kitchens and doing those types of things. Now that you've got the LLC and you're starting your own business and it's, Reed Street Barbecue, what are some things that you've learned that maybe you didn't expect? What are some surprises that you've encountered along the way in the actual catering side of things?
You can plan as much as you think you can, and you're still going to forget something. You can make every list in the world. On my laptop, every catering I've ever done, I've always made lists like, hey, don't forget spoons, don't forget this, because like it's just something that was ingrained in me. And every time there's always something at the last second, I'll look, why didn't I think of that? Every time I will always, it doesn't matter how much I try, I always manage to forget some little detail. That's one thing that's really been a learning curve is always just triple check everything you got, because like there's always going to be something. And the other thing is taxes. Business taxes is it's been a lot. It's trying to make sure I'm like keeping thorough records of all this stuff so that when tax season comes around, I'm not like scrambling to try and find something here or there.
Yeah, that business side of it. Don't worry about the taxes. We won't tell anybody. Just everybody out there in the world that's listening to the podcast know you've got a business now. But otherwise, pay no attention to those taxes. I'm sure that gets you in trouble in the end. We don't want that to happen. So, but you are here in Hickory, North Carolina, and you've got Reed Street Barbecue operating. I know you've done a couple of events around here and got some high praises from folks that I know. Tell me, what brought you to North Carolina after spending, a few years in the Charleston area?
My wife, actually. We were living at the beach down near Hilton Head. I was very happy down there.
Yeah.
My wife wanted seasons, as she says it. She wanted to have cold weather. She didn't want it to be 80 all the time. She has some friends and family in the area. So when our lease came up last May, she was like, would you move to Hickory? I'm like, can we just go look around Hickory? Because I don't know if it's really my speed. I'm a small town guy. Like, the less people there are around me, the better. I know that's not great for business, but I'm good living out in the woods by myself on 100 acres. And there's nobody for 20 miles. But she drugged me up here. We checked the place out. I ended up liking it a lot. So when our lease came up, we moved up to Hickory. I know she's a lot happier up here. I can't complain. I enjoyed it. We found a great place to rent. We're staying there right now. Hickory's not too expensive, which is nice. That was kind of one of those things I was worried about, because where we're at was fairly cheap to live at. But so that was one of the things. But yeah, she kind of drugged me up here, kind of kicking and screaming, because I didn't really want to leave the beach. It was kind of. But I've enjoyed living up here because I like the mountain. I didn't realize how much I like mountains. That's been kind of fun, just getting up in the Appalachians and being around the Blue Ridge and stuff like that.
Yeah, it definitely is very convenient to being here in the foothills is convenient up to Grandfather Mountain and the Blue Ridge. But, we're still only about 4 hours away from Charleston. And like your wife said, we get 4 seasons, and that's really nice thing. And, there is some good barbecue around, but in Hickory, there's a little bit of a void. So maybe Reed Street can fill some of that void there. Kind of speaking of Hickory and Carolina barbecue, how have your barbecue practices changed since you've spent time in either North Carolina or even Charleston?
Pepper vinegar. I'm going to just go ahead, and I had never heard of pepper. I had heard of Carolina barbecue. I knew that the vinegar was a thing, but I had never seen it used. I got to Charleston, and home team puts pepper vinegar in their pork. When they pull the pork, they mix some pepper vinegar. It's not like, you said it before, and I'm drawing a blank on the word, when you're talking to Sam Jones, and he used a little bit to like add a little flavor to the pulled pork. That's kind of what they do. And that's something I actually incorporated myself was now when I pull pork, I'll keep a quart of my own pepper vinegar, and I'll dip my hands in it as I'm pulling the meat. So it gets just a little bit of flavor as I'm going. But I don't douse it in pepper vinegar. I don't want my views of barbecue to affect how people do. So if you want to put a sweet sauce, mustard, whatever, I don't try to put too much into it. I'm still trying to figure out, is it Western North Carolina is the tomato sauce and Eastern is vinegar? I keep getting those backwards. And I keep getting in trouble for that one. People are like, no, it's the other. They get mad when I get them mixed up. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. I'm still getting the hang of Eastern and Western North Carolina barbecue because man, people are it's this or that. And when you get them mixed up, they will let you know. But I'm
Yeah,
still
well,
trying
I
to
mean, it's
figure out.
almost as competitive as Alabama and that other school down the road.
Yeah.
Yes, down east is vinegar and pepper, and then anything Lexington and west is generally got that tomato sauce in there or ketchup in it as well.
All right. I tried to make some the other day at an event, and I was told it was okay, but it wasn't right. So I'm still trying to figure out the tomato vinegar sauce. That's still a sauce that eludes me. I'm gonna try. I'm working on it. I'm gonna get that figured out so I can appease everyone and no one yells at me.
Yeah, well, hey, at the risk of giving up all the Low and Slow Barbecue Show secrets, check us out at lowslowbbqshow.com. I've got my Meemaw's or my wife's Meemaw's Lexington barbecue sauce recipe there. She's from Davidson County. She lived in Lexington. She knew the people from
Okay.
Barbecue Center and the monks there at Lexington. And I'm not going to say it's the same thing, but it is really good. So it's a foundation for you to start and work from.
All right.
I know you know what you're doing there, but maybe it'll offer you a little bit of help about what's going on
I'll
in there.
I'll always take a foundation. Like my Alabama white sauce is based on Big Bob Gibson's recipe. Like I looked at his and was like, that's good, but I think we can fix it just a little bit. And so I'll always take a foundation because I don't know everything and I love to learn. That's one of the other things about barbecue is I love learning because there's so many styles, there's so many ways people do things. That's on the other side. It's just so much fun to learn how to cook barbecues. You always learn from somebody.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, speaking of learning, who do you turn to for advice to do some of that learning now that you're kind of in a foreign place?
I do just ask around town. I got a couple of guys I work with that were chefs that have lived in the whole area. I've got one guy I worked with who grew up in Burke County, so I asked him about what's going on in the area and like food and stuff. And then I like to actually get on YouTube because Texas. I always get this messed up. It's Texas Quarterly, the magazine that does the Texas Best Barbecue. There's a lot of people who do videos on like who's number one, who's number two, and they'll go like interview those guys. So I get on YouTube a lot and see what they're doing and seeing how they're doing stuff and just kind of like taking some hints here and there on like what they're doing. Especially like when Goldie's won I think it was a couple years ago, and they were talking about their banana pudding, and I was like, oh, cool. I'm doing something right because I love banana. Dude, I couldn't. There's not enough banana pudding in the world. I could eat banana pudding every day of my life. But to see somebody who's like one of the best in Texas doing banana pudding made me feel better about me doing banana pudding because I'm like, I know Golden Rule does banana pudding, and I shouldn't doubt myself, but like, it's not a common thing. My wife doesn't eat banana pudding. It's still, I don't know. Some days I'm not sure I married the right person when she told me that. I'm like, I don't know about that one.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe you don't tell her about being on this podcast. No, I take
Oh,
that back. Let her listen.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that when it comes around.
Well, you've mentioned out some of my favorite barbecue brands from Alabama, Full Moon, and I grew up on Golden Rule and Jim and Nick's, maybe a little bit below those other guys. You know, definitely Alabama is a hodgepodge of barbecue. But how do you feel like the audience's expectations here in the Carolinas different from maybe what people in Alabama are looking for in terms of barbecue?
That's a good question, actually. I feel like my barbecue is going to be, man, I'm going to say that they're going to expect a little more spice, and mine is not going to be as spicy. Like I looked at Carolina barbecue rubs, just kind of like when I moved here, I'm like, what's a barbecue rub in Carolina? And then I saw like cumin and a couple ingredients, and I don't know if I was with the right thing, but I hope I was. But everything I read was that it was a little bit spicier. There was a little bit more of a heat to it. Mine really does not have a lot of heat to it. I really am more garlic powder, onion powder, smoked paprika, salt, pepper. I really don't use a lot of spice. I use just a little bit of vinegar in it. There's more of a sweetness to my barbecue because I am from more of that side of the country where there's a little more sweet, a little more Memphis, a little more Kansas City. But it's not sugary either. It's more savory, but not so much spicy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, you shared one of your recipes with us, and we're going to get that onto the blog there at lowslowbbqshow.com. And it's for macaroni and cheese. First, tell me, what does somebody, and I won't give all the details here. Folks can find it on the blog. But what does somebody need to keep in mind when they're preparing that recipe?
Low and slow actually is a key to this mac and cheese.
Hmm.
It is I'm going to use a fancy French term, but it's a velouté style sauce.
Do what?
So yeah, exactly. Um, so it's a cheese sauce. So you're going to make a cheese sauce first, and you want to heat your milk and cream up slow. Let it come up slow because you don't want to scald that milk and cream. You don't want that burnt flavor. So slowly let it come up to that simmer before you add your cheese and stuff, and then you're good to go from there. If you do it too quick, you're going to burn that milk. It's going to taste awful. I've burned it a few times trying to be in a rush, trying to do it too fast, and I learned that just low and slow is the best recipe for this mac and cheese. Take your time, and I promise it'll be delicious.
Yeah. Well, how is it different from maybe somebody else's mac and cheese?
So it is a baked mac and cheese, and a lot of
Uh-huh.
people, they'll just like mix their stuff. Mine is, you make a cheese sauce, and then your noodles will basically be floating. It's going to look like there is way too much cheese sauce when you make this. I promise you don't make it enough, because the noodles will absorb a lot of that cheese sauce, and it will just. My wife, I'm not going to say on the podcast, it's not perfect, but my wife told me something when I made this, that it was better than other things in my life. She told me I was not doing some things right in our relationship, and this was better than that. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess this mac and cheese is really that good. So
Very good. Well, that's good to know for anybody else who tries to make it at home. Maybe they can compare it to other things in their
yeah.
life. Okay, so you talked a little bit about the hard part of owning the barbecue business, the taxes and some of that stuff. What do you enjoy most about doing the Reed Street barbecue and in the catering piece that you've got going?
Getting to just sit back and relax.
Hmm.
It is barbecue is not you got to have a lot of patience. It's not anything quick. It's one of those things that kind of bugs me. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a barbecue, and you're talking about grilling burgers. It's not the same thing. Um, Barbecue is low, it's slow, it's patience, it's time. You just get to sit back. That's the best part about it, is like when you're doing these things, it's like you just get to sit back with your friends, sit down in a lawn chair, let things cook, just keep an eye on it, and you just get to relax. Whereas a lot of my experience when I was cooking over 20 years is, how fast can I get this ticket out? How quickly can I make this? How fast can I do that? And barbecue, it's the exact opposite. It's calm, it's peaceful. I know some people are going to listen to me like, barbecue is not calm. For me, barbecue is so peaceful to me. I can just throw a couple pieces of wood, check on it, sit back, relax, have a drink, do whatever, and I'm good. It can just be easy. So that's, for me, it's the best of both worlds. I get to cook, I get to play with my food, and I don't have to just stress and just be miserable trying to crank food out as fast as I can.
Okay, so tell us what's next for Reed Street Barbecue, and hopefully we get you a bunch of orders there. Again, you can reach out to Gil at Reed Street BBQ. That's REEDST BBQ at gmail.com. And he's got an Instagram page there under the same name, REEDST BBQ. So check him out there. You place your next catering order, get an event planned. But what are you hoping is next outside of some of these catering events there, Gil?
I'm hoping to do my first pop up at the end of August. That is my
Okay.
goal right now. Just hit Amazon Prime up on Prime Day for a few little things here and there that I got to go. I got a little bit of paperwork to do and a couple other little things. I got a wedding mid-August, so I'm gonna do it after that. But my goal is at the end of August, maybe right around Memorial Day, is do my first pop up.
All right. Well, Labor Day, I think you mean there, end of August. So
Right.
definitely keep us in mind. Let me know once you get that set. We'll put it out on the Lowdown newsletter and let everybody know about it and help you promote that. And we've already followed you there on Instagram. So definitely look forward to
Appreciate it.
sharing that story with our audience there, and wish you the best of luck. Now, before we get out of here, you may have heard this on some of our other episodes. We're going to take you through the low and slow showdown. Now, these are quick hitters with just a little bit of an explanation when prompted, but really just kind of one answer, one word answer. So, first of
All right.
all, Gil, gas, charcoal, pellets, or wood?
Wood.
And what's your favorite wood?
Hickory.
And was that?
It's just what I grew up on, man. That's just it. That's all I could think. It was like driving home by my parents' house. We'd pass full moon all the time, and you could just that's all you could smell was that hickory burn, and that's just it's just home in my mind. So that's just what I love to use.
Yeah. Okay. So pork, beef, chicken, or something else? Turkey.
Uh, Actually, chicken is like my go-to. If chicken is my go-to. I know I'm in pork country in the southeast, but dude, I think my chicken is some of the best.
Excellent. So what's your favorite side?
Um, my mac and cheese if I'm making it, but if somebody makes a good coleslaw, I actually do like a good coleslaw. But sometimes people either do weird combinations. So I like it a little bit sweet, but not like sugary, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah. Do
I
you
do
want it
like
the
a good
white
coleslaw.
slaw or the vinegar slaw?
Actually, I can't remember who I had, but they had it was a mayonnaise base, but they put a little vinegar in it, so it kind of cut that sweetness, but it had a little bite. Oh, it was delicious.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the best state in these United States for barbecue?
Oh man, you're gonna get me in trouble for this one. Um, I gotta say South Carolina. I know I'm from Alabama, but I've had some of the best barbecue I've ever had has been in South Carolina.
Fair enough. What is the best Carolina barbecue style? Is it Eastern, Western? That's the stuff with the tomato sauce, or South Carolina mustard?
I'm gonna go with Eastern. The vinegar sauce
Okay.
is I've tried the mustard. It's not bad. It can be really of a bite sometimes.
Mm,
I don't understand Western tomato. I'm sorry. Maybe I've just had bad versions of it. I would love to try it when it's done correctly. So I need to
yep.
go to Lexington and try theirs.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, that pepper vinegar, man, they did something right with that one.
Yeah, that's for sure. Can't complain too much there. But let me ask you this. Do you want Eastern vinegar style or Alabama white sauce?
If it's pork, it's the vinegar. If it's chicken, it's Alabama white.
There you go. So is the meat better with or without the sauce?
Me, I'm no sauce. I know that I'm no sauce. I got to see how your dry rub and how your smoking ability is. I want that plain as day because I want to try that first.
Okay, so I'm gonna take you down memory lane here. These
Okay,
last couple, best ribs, Archibald's or Dreamland?
Dreamland.
Oh man, all the people in Tuscaloosa just shouted. Best barbecue, Golden Rule or Jim and Nick's?
I got to go with Jim and Nick's. I know that one's a hard one, but I like Jim and Nick's.
Saws or Full Moon?
That I got to give Full Moon in this one because I didn't get a chance to eat Saws as much as I wanted to. I only got to go to once or twice before I moved. So I got to give it to Full Moon just because I know them a little bit better. I need to go back and try Saws again.
Go back and try Saws again. They're good, but I'm with you. Full Moon's really good. That smoked turkey sandwich where they stack the turkey sideways in there, man, unlike
What
anything I've
about
ever
their
had.
onion rings? Their onion rings are super underrated. I'm sorry, but that's one of the best sides I've ever had. Is they make those just massive onion rings. They're so good.
Excellent. I'll check them out next time I'm back home in Sweet Home. Last question, Gil. Is barbecue a verb or a noun?
I say it's a noun because I don't think you can because I hear people like, oh, we're gonna go barbecue. No, that's not. You're gonna have a barbecue. I think it's a noun.
And that, my friends, is the lowdown from Gil Barnes, the pitmaster from Reed Street Barbecue. Gil, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Definitely. You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcast. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. That's where you'll find the blog and you can hear other podcast episodes. You'll see Gil's recipe for mac and cheese and some other stuff. Remember, if you like what you hear in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast network. That'll help other people find our podcast. And remember, when you visit lowslowbbqshow.com, subscribe to the Lowdown newsletter. We'll send you the latest podcasts, blogs, recipes, barbecue events like Gil's pop-up coming soon, and more, all to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. Special thanks to our guest, Gil Barnes from Reed Street Barbecue. Thanks to producer Andrew Moose and team at TV Network. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.